Hello everyone and welcome to the show. I'm Trevor Stockwell and today's guest is actually a returner. If you haven't yet listened to the episode that Dave Liu recorded with Yeukai, where he shares about his insights on how to start your company, take it from an idea through to financing it, then definitely check that out, but not now. Today, Dave is going to be sharing with us some of his expertise when it comes to advising CEOs about how to navigate change, how to navigate it well, and also how to implement incentives that drive behaviour, both within the company with your staff and your team, and also outside with your customers. So it's great to have an opportunity to chat with Dave as well. Welcome to the show, David Liu.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for inviting me back.
Brilliant. It's always nice when someone comes back because we can dig into a little bit more, get to know you better, but also unpack more of your expertise. So that was really good. And you've got lots of experience, over many years. You're still young, but you've had lots of experience where you've helped people in business, and then since that, starting up several companies as well. So, we won't cover all of that because people can listen to the other episode because it's definitely worth listening to. But maybe just to start us off, for people that haven't yet heard it and they don't yet know who you are, you also invest more from a sort of philanthropic approach into Hollywood and Broadway, don't you? Just enlighten us a little bit on what you do with that and the why behind it, really.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things I feel very strongly about is helping communities that are underrepresented. And for me personally, I'm very passionate about helping drive more representation of Asian Americans on screen, on podcasts. Just frankly, my hope is that the more the mainstream society sees our faces and our voice, and we become less of the other and more of the mainstream Americans. And what I learned pretty early on was that I don't have a lot of experience in determining what content will be successful. I certainly haven't been trained for decades in that. But what I am pretty good at is helping people build their businesses. As you had rightly pointed out, that's something that I've actually spent my whole career doing. One of the things I like to analogize to is I love movies, and one of my favorite movies is The Godfather. And if you watch that movie, the right-hand man of The Godfather is Tom Hagen. And Tom Hagen essentially is his confidant, the person he looks to, even more so than his own children. And during my career, I'm proud to say that I have been the Tom Hagen for many, many CEOs and founders. And so when I thought about how I could help drive more representation, more media, I thought about how I could be the Tom Hagen for others trying to get their voices heard or create more content with a more diverse viewpoint. And so I decided that the best way that I could affect change was through helping to invest and finance some of these movie, TV, and Broadway production companies that are focused on getting more diverse voices. I'm proud to say a company that I recently got involved with called TEG won a Grammy and a Tony Award for Jagged Little Pill, which was a Broadway show that the founder produced. And so that's just a couple examples of some of the things I'm doing on the investing side, investing to help drive more representation. In addition to that, I feel very strongly about helping others and giving back. And so my wife and I have set up scholarships focused on Asian American women in particular at our alma mater, at our schools that we went to. And then I'm also actively involved in helping drive donations and raise charitable donations for organizations that help cleft kids. So kids that are born with clefts, which is what I was born with. So organizations like Smile Train that really help kids with providing surgeries across the world. So those are just a few of the things I do from a philanthropic standpoint. But I'm a big believer that once you've had some modicum of success, you really should try to get back any way you can.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Definitely, yeah. Definitely agree with you on that. That's what money's for, isn't it, really, in the grand scheme of things? It's just how can we make somebody else's life better? Yeah, and be strategic about it. That's really good. So any cameo parts at some point in the future, or is that secret, or is that not something that's on the list of things to do?
Well, I'm not an actor. I could probably, I was an investment banker, so I think I could probably play an investment banker on TV, but no, I'm not an actor. I don't have that skill. But one of the things I did do, which is kind of something that I like doing a lot, is I became kind of an amateur cartoonist. So I do my own cartoons, both two-dimensional as well as some animation. And I actually created a cartoon series called the ABC Life, ABC standing for American Born Chinese, because I really didn't see any cartoons out there with Asian American families. And so I created this cartoon strip. It's syndicated on several websites, including one of the largest websites for Asian American news called asiaamnews.com. And it's just fun because I get to basically draw a family that kind of looks a lot like my family. And in fact, the father of the family, people have said, looks just like me. And I basically get to joke around and tell stories about funny things that my kids say to me and funny things that are in my life. So that's probably the closest I've gotten to putting myself on print or
Yeah,
on film.
that's really good. Yeah, it's another way of sort of self-expression, isn't it, and getting the message out, and also, as you say, promoting a better balance and representation across the arts and the creative industry. So no, that's really good. Well done. So let's dig into one of my favorite subjects is leadership and how we can help leaders, business owners do what they do best, grow their business, scale their businesses, so that with lots of money in the bank, they can help other people. We'll put that caveat on the end because that's important. But yeah, so I'm intrigued and interested to learn of some of the things that you've helped the CEOs navigate through with regards to particularly change. Change is one of those things that's sort of with us always to some extent. How well we navigate change determines a lot of how the future goes for the organizations and the individuals. So without me digging too much into my own experience on it, but just from your perspective, I'd be really keen to understand some of the how can you help or how have you helped CEOs or business owners maybe prepare for change from a mindset perspective, or just how they structure the business, and then how would you navigate through some of the changes that have happened? Big question, I know. Maybe just start with the how do we prepare and sort of stay flexible enough for change so that it's beneficial rather than detrimental.
Well, I think the first thing that's really important is to recognize that change is actually good. Change is good for you. It's good for the business. It unearths opportunity. And I think we all fundamentally understand that, but there's a big difference between understanding it and welcoming it and putting it into practice. Because the reality is that evolutionary biology has dictated that we aren't really welcoming of change. Change could lead to us potentially getting eaten by a lion. Change could lead to us freezing out in the cold. And so I think that the first really important thing is to recognize that when there is change comes opportunity. And then the key is to figure out, how do I exploit that opportunity quickly before someone else does? And so I think that's first and foremost. I think second, understanding and focusing on what you can control versus what you can't control. One thing that you can't control are changes in the competitive landscape. You can't control who your competition is. You can't control what they're going to do. And so my view is just don't worry about that. Focus on what you can control and focus on how you can exploit these opportunities. And I think it starts with first educating yourself on the market. What are the opportunities that this change represents? One of the things that I constantly think about when it comes to product-driven companies, particularly companies that are focused in the technology space, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel to be really successful. In many ways, I live by the old adage, the old allegory of the two people running away from the bear. You don't have to outrun the bear; you just have to outrun the other guy, right? And you'll be fine. And so, a lot of change and competitive tension, I think, brings opportunity, because what you really need to think deeply about is, how do I augment my business or my opportunity such that I'm cheaper, faster, maybe a little bit easier to use than the other guy or the other gal. And so when you look at Silicon Valley in particular as a case study, there's a lot of companies that did not reinvent the wheel. They just made something that was easier to set up, and they lived by the old adage of zero configuration. So it's much easier, or you take out, ideally all the steps, but you take out some of the steps to set something up. Or they've developed a better user experience. And the user experience can be simply, oh, there's a mobile app version of something, or the website just looks, frankly, a little better. It's a little bit more easy to use. Or you could be a local vendor, and surprise, surprise, your business is doing better than the other guy who sells exactly the same thing, because you actually ask for feedback from your customers. So I think that when I think about change, I think about opportunity, and I also think about, how do I make my product or service just a little bit better than the other guys to take advantage of that opportunity. So I really do look at it as an opportunity. I don't look at it as a negative. But I think it's really important to always be mindful of what's going on around you, and making sure that you are aware of what competitors are doing. Because look, let's face it, if, let's say, competitors are coming into an industry, if you're a pessimist, you'd be thinking, oh my gosh, all these competitors are coming to an industry. But if you're an optimist and an opportunist, you can say, well, people are coming into this industry because this industry happens to be growing. There happens to be opportunity. And we all know that the best businesses are actually those where there's a rising tide and there's a lot of boats. And the really best businesses are those where there's a rising tide, and you figured out some formula where you're slowly building market share, slowly creating your own monopoly, and the other boats are sinking while the tide is rising, and you're going with the tide. So net, I look at it as an opportunity, and I counsel a lot of the CEOs that I mentor that, let's not look at change as a negative. Look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah, that's really good. For everyone listening, if you don't hear anything else that Dave says today, and hopefully you will, that by itself is worth tuning in, just to keep that perspective. Yeah, the thing about change is, we think change is amazing and really good for everybody else, but yeah, we're the slow ones to embrace it a lot of the time. So I like what you said there. It makes a lot of sense. For those that don't know, you actually have advised CEOs in lots of different sectors, haven't you? AI, tech, media, production companies as well. So what you've learned and what you're sharing covers whatever people's business and focus is that's listening to us. The principles are the same, aren't they? Change is going to happen in every sector and industry, really. And I like what you said about, you don't have to recreate something from scratch. Literally find what's working. If you're passionate about it, how can you add your flavor, your focus on it, that makes the whole experience better for the end user? I think that's key. And like you say, sometimes we could hear that and go, well, I know that. It's like, but are you actually doing it, isn't it? Are you acting on that knowledge? Or is it new to you? Are you someone that's shrunk back and thought, I like things as they are, let's just hold on as long as we can and stay in business without changing? It's like, it's a dying business model, isn't it? It just doesn't go anywhere positive, and you end up taking your employees down with you, if you don't change so much. So lots of good wisdom in what you've shared so far, as well as from the mindset perspective of, okay, so now I need to look at change as a positive thing because there are opportunities. How would you help business owners that are still stuck in the old ways but want to embrace change? Anything else that you could share around that would help them to flip the switch, if you like, to change their focus?
So changing behavior is a very difficult thing. And there's whole fields of study going on right now around how you institute change more effectively. If it was that easy, you wouldn't see businesses get disrupted by newcomers. And we've seen it time and time again, right? History has shown that it repeats itself constantly, particularly as it relates to business, where an incumbent gets fat and happy, and then the newcomer comes in and eats their lunch. So if I had a simple solution to that, I think we'd all, we wouldn't see that story as often. But I think for myself, what I have seen and what I counsel a lot of companies to think about is think about creating environments within your own company that are separate and apart from your core business so that you are constantly thinking about how do we compete against ourselves. So one of the now mythic stories in Silicon Valley was a story of how Steve Jobs, kind of carved out a group within Apple to develop a different platform, different operating system, different computer, and that organization was separate and away from the main campus. And they put a pirate flag on the top of their building, and they really looked to themselves as being pirates within a broader organization. And so I think that that's a very useful tool, particularly if you're a larger company, where you should constantly have like pirate flag groups in your organization. You should constantly be thinking about what are the other products and services that could disrupt us, and rather than wait for competition to disrupt us, we should be disrupting ourselves. So I think that framework does work. It's still very difficult because you can imagine at some point you're all drawing from the same pool of resources, and if you are a very senior person in a company, you're constantly thinking about, do I put dollars and resources behind something that is our cash cow, is the part of our business that's growing, that kind of frankly pays the bills,
Yeah.
or do I put money and resources and people behind something that could be potentially more explosive than our core business, but fundamentally is not that today and is in fact competing against our existing business. So I think it's, again, easy to framework some of this stuff and say, oh, of course you should do this and that, but recognizing that there is competitive tension within an organization to actually achieve that, I think is part of the challenge.
Yeah. No, it's a good perspective though, and kind of linked with that is my other curiosity really, which I'd also like to get your expertise and your view on from your experiences, is building the right sort of culture within companies, within an organization, even within a team, depending how it looks for people listening, but in a way that if you've got that pirate group, once they've realized a disruptive element, they're not going to suddenly run off and start their own company and be your competitor, because the atmosphere is toxic. They can't stay around. They don't want to stay around. We'll sort of touch on motivation a bit as well in a moment, but what would be some of the things that help to formulate a good culture within a team, within an organization, and some of the things you've seen that just doesn't work? There's no longevity to it. There's no health in the environment.
So I've had the opportunity and the privilege of working in multiple industries. As you know, I started my career on Wall Street. Then I worked for a long time in Silicon Valley, and now I'm doing things in entertainment. And during my time on Wall Street, I worked with thousands of companies across the entire landscape, from consumer to energy to alternative energy, so broad range. What I will tell you is that every situation is frankly bespoke. It is really hard to make broad generalizations around what could work with one company, one industry versus another. I'll give you a perfect example. In the three industries I just mentioned, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, and entertainment. there's lots of different things that motivate people. But if you forced me to make some broad characterizations, which I'm loath to do, but if you force me, I would say that Wall Street in general is motivated by money and money and money. Silicon Valley is motivated by money, purpose, money, and maybe freshly stocked kombuchas, in the kitchen. Entertainment is motivated by money, fame, and more fame, and then also knowing people who are famous, right? So I think that first and foremost, in order to figure out how to deal with, the incubated pirate ship people, or how to get people to do what you want them to do, I think the first and foremost, what you need to really understand is what motivates your organization, what motivates people in your industry, what motivates people to come to your industry. And then once you have kind of those broad-based impressions, what I found to be most successful is really thinking about it on a very, very bespoke individual basis. Because not everybody on Wall Street is motivated by money. Not every person in Silicon Valley is motivated by purpose. Not every person in Hollywood is motivated by fame. And I think what leaders do well is that they invest the time and effort to really figure that out on an individual basis. I really do believe this is the reason why you can't have that many direct reports. I think, the business schools, the best business schools in the world, generally say, anywhere between half a dozen to a dozen direct reports is really where people cap out. And I really do believe that, but probably for a different reason, which is it's just really hard to get to know more than a dozen people in your company and really get to know them. Understand, like, okay, so I know you have a son, and your son's going to be an empty nester soon, or is going to college or whatever. When that happens, your motivations probably will change, right? In many ways, you're hopeful that, okay, my kids are going off to college, and the days of them living off Bank of Dad or Bank of Mom, are coming to an end. And so maybe I'm not as motivated by the fear of not having enough money to pay for my kids to go to college, right? Now it's really about the second inning or the second half of my life and figuring out how to drive purpose in my life, right? You only really get to know these things if you really get to know the people that work for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that by spending time with people on an individual basis, not only in the office, but outside the office, I think that's when you really get to the heart of what motivates them. And motivation is really key, because once you figure out the motivations of all the people around you, people that work for you, people that might be in a different group, the people that are focused on the cash cow of the business versus the people that are focused on the pirate ship. Once you figure out what motivates them, then you can build the incentives to get them to do what you want them to do, right? Like, so for instance, if I know that I have someone on my team that's really motivated by purpose, because that's really what drives them to come in the office every day, then I'll make sure that they work on purposeful projects. Make sure that they work on projects that give them a sense of meaning. Yeah. If I have somebody on my team that I know is, really focused on building that nest egg, it's all about the money, right? It's like, yes, it's great to have purpose, but right now I need to make money, to pay for my kids' school, or, that home I want. Then make sure that you reward them, and make sure you build incentives around compensation, and incentives around, like, being able for them to realize that nest egg. And so I think when I step back, I think deeply about what are the motivations of all the people on my team, recognize that they're all different, and then really figure out, how do I get to the heart of each individual's motivation as quickly as possible, so that I can create incentives that really bring out the best in those people.
Yeah, that's really good. And it comes from, once you've built that relationship, they're then more likely to share those things. Whereas if you're coming at it from a perspective where I'm the boss, I'm asking you a question, open up and tell me what motivates you, you're not necessarily going to get an honest answer, because they don't know what the outcome of what they say is going to be, do they? But if they know that actually my boss is for me. He wants to develop me. He wants me to put me where my strengths are. Motivate me to come to work, etc., etc. Then, yeah, there's such a win-win in that side of things. Makes perfect
And I'll
sense.
tell you, just not to interrupt Trevor, but
No,
I'll
go for
tell
it.
you that is really important, right? Like, if you really want to understand what motivates people, you have to develop trust, and you cannot get that overnight.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, people will not tell you what they really are motivated by for fear of losing something,
yeah,
right? For fear of disclosing something that could hurt them later. Like, so for instance, a very perfect example or simple example is the issue of compensation, right? If I work for you, unless I really trust you, why would I ever share with you that I'm not motivated by getting paid really well,
yeah,
right? Because if I reveal to you that I don't care that much about money, guess what's going to happen? I'm not going to be paid very well, right? Because you're going to go like, well, Dave doesn't really care about money. He told me, right? And so it's really important to develop that trust relationship with people, and not to lose that trust by betraying it, right? Not to, like, you and I have gotten really close, and on a trip, business trip one day, you revealed to me that I'm not really motivated that much by money. I'm really focused on purpose, and even if I don't get paid in the top quartile, I'm okay with that, right? Then, as your manager, me, it behooves me not to betray that trust, right?
yeah,
Where maybe if I were your manager, I'd probably still pay you in top quartile,
yeah,
because I'd say, you know what, Trevor, you did a great job for me. I know money's not important to you, but money is important in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to make sure that you get paid well, but also figure out how to incent you to do other things that I know drive you more, like purpose.
yeah,
So trust is important, and that's why you got to invest the time, because
yeah,
you can't expect overnight that people are just going to trust you as a boss, right? Because that whole boss employee relationship is a tension filled one
yeah,
with rife for a lot of exploitation.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like the boss asked you a question. Okay, what's the right answer to this? There's the truth, and then there's the answer that I think you want to hear a lot of the time, isn't there? And that it creates obstacles, doesn't it? I think it is a challenge. You're right. And I think the other thing you touched on earlier about realizing that change happens and things change, and like the better you know your team, motivations will change, as you said, over time. So you need to be aware of that. And also, are they now, happy that they've done that activity, that project, and they want to learn something else, or do they want to just keep doing the same thing? Some people, depend on personality, are wired more that I like the familiar, just keep going round and round doing the same tasks. Other people just need to be a lot more creative, don't they? So it's really finding, as much as you can. There are limitations within a business. We couldn't necessarily all just do what we want. Nobody does the stuff that nobody wants to do because it still needs to happen. But I think, yeah, you're right. The success, as much as we can as business owners, leaders, is matching the people with the skills and the passion to develop those skills with those specific tasks. Build that relationship so that if at some point they say, actually, things have changed, can I have an honest conversation with you? They're free to do that. And it starts really with the leaders taking the lead of being vulnerable to some extent, opening up and starting the process of building trust by being human, by being honest as well with the staff, rather than expect it to come from them first. We always lead by example, don't we? So lots of good stuff there. For people listening, there's gold here. If there's things you're struggling with your team, with people, just with how you lead yourself as well. Just think through what Dave shared, think through what we're talking about as well, and see the bits that you need to just pick up and start running with, just to make your business more profitable, make your life more enjoyable, and that of your team as well. I think that's such a key area as well. We are coming close to the end of our time on this episode as well. They go fast, they really do. But I wanted to just kind of, I suppose, close this off really with a lot of the insights that we've been chatting about today. You've put in a book form, haven't you, to help people navigate wherever they are in the business journey. Tell us a little bit about the book and what would people get from following on this conversation with reading the book?
Sure. So I wrote this book called The Way of the Wall Street Warrior: Conquer the Corporate Game Using Tips, Tricks, and Smart Cuts. And essentially, the book is a summary of some of the tactics that I use to break through the ceiling and rise from the entry level of the Wall Street firm to the co-head and managing director level of a firm, of a major firm. And I just share some of the things that I learned about how to navigate everything from how to bring value by conducting yourself in the meeting, how to make friends, not enemies, how to get paid, how to get promoted. A lot of these things that, frankly, nobody ever taught me, and I didn't learn at business school, and I wish somebody had taught me these things. Um, I try to share my stories in a way where I tell the audience what I did in order to achieve these things. And then I validate it with science. I validate it with some of the learnings from Nobel Prize winning research around human psychology and cognitive bias, things that have fundamentally changed the way I think we all look at how we run our businesses and how we deal with people. Because the reality is before this field really came to prominence over the last couple of decades, I think we all assumed people were rational. We all assumed people were the same. We all assumed that they would be incented by the same things.
Yeah.
And we know that's just frankly not true. And so that's really my gift to the community, a way for people to think about if I'm stuck in a rut, or maybe I'm in a dead end job, or I feel I'm under appreciated, or I'm not getting a promotion or that compensation package that I want. My hope is that when people read my book, they might pick up one or two tricks or tips that can help them in their career. And the last point on the book is I've been very fortunate to be in a point where I can give back to the community. And so 100% of the proceeds that go to me from the book, I will be donating to charity, again, to help disadvantaged and underrepresented groups.
Perfect. So it's a win-win all round, really, isn't it? We get to learn from your experience and those that you've case studied, and other people benefit as well from the proceeds. So well done. That's really good. You've got a lot to share from your experience as well. And we've just touched on the surface. I get the feeling that if I spent a day with you plumbing your expertise, I'd still want to chat to you again, which is a nice place to be, definitely. But just in what you've shared today, you certainly helped our audience. If they take action, and I'll chat to the listeners in a moment in a little bit more detail to encourage them. But thank you for what you're doing in business, for what you're doing to help startups, and also, as you say, trying to get a better balance and representation across different groups of people, and just change the culture and the perspective on how certain parts of society, certain people groups are viewed, and opportunities that are given to them, and those that maybe don't come to them as easy as others. It's good. So keep up the good work with that, definitely. The whole world will benefit the more that people are able to give and express who they really are. So it's a win-win that way as well. So thanks, Dave. Appreciate your time again. You can always come back a third time, by all means. I will chat with Yeukai. We will try at some point to get you back. But your book is literally coming out. We're recording this October 2021, so it's coming out in November.
That's correct. It's being published by Wiley November 9th of this year. It is available for pre-order right now in almost every English-speaking country. So you can get it on Amazon, Waterstone, wherever. But yes, it is going to be on the shelves November 9th.
Brilliant. No, that sounds really good. And there'll be a link to your website below this episode as well, so people can follow through and learn more about who you are and what you do, how you get involved with different things. So that's really good. Yeah, thanks again for your time. Let's wrap it up there for now. But just wanted to encourage everybody listening, just take one or two things that Dave's shared, we've talked about today, that you think, actually, if I sorted that out and I improved that, it would help make things better. And then come back and listen to some others and pick up some more nuggets of wisdom. Just try one or two things to start with. Don't try and do everything because we get overwhelmed. We're like that because we're human. We like one or two things to progress at once, usually. Then we build our capacity and capability to handle more things. So just take one or two things, but make sure you put something into action. Make sure from what you've heard today, you take action in some area. Otherwise, we're not going to change. Your business won't change. And that's not what you want. That's not what we want either. So we'll encourage you. You can do it. We believe in you. We definitely believe that you're able to offer something good to the world through your businesses and what you offer. So keep growing, keep listening, catch some more episodes, catch Dave's previous episode as well, as I said before. And we'll wrap it up for now, but we will catch you all next time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Trevor.